Well, when it's the weekend, we all want to go to the movies, and when we all want to go to the movies, we check in with Michael Snyder and find out what's happening in those movies. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and feeling springy. Spring has sprung, as they say, and we're ready for more fun at the local theater. And, I don't think it's picnic time yet. I don't know how you're doing in New York, but out here it's very, very temperate. But all that aside, let's get down to movie stuff. What do you say?
Okay.
Life is no longer a regularly published magazine, sadly enough, although it may or may not still be a cereal on the local supermarket shelf. I was never a fan of Life, the cereal, more of a Cheerios and shredded wheat guy, but it is definitely a new horror and sci-fi movie, which is opening in theaters this weekend. Life stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Rebecca Ferguson, Ryan Reynolds, and a couple other pretty good actors. In essence, it's all about a crew on the International Space Station, a couple of American guys, a couple of Brits, a man and a woman, a Japanese fellow, and a female Russian commander. I think the UN Security Council would approve. In any event, they are tasked with snagging an exploratory unmanned spacecraft on its return trajectory from Mars. I mean, this is significant because the craft is bringing Martian soil samples back to Earth so they can be examined for the first signs of extraterrestrial life. And before you ask me, no, they do not discover Matt Damon's toenail clippings in the dirt. But there is something in the angry red planet's loam, something microscopic, something possibly dangerous. Possibly? Really? Do you think? If it's not dangerous, we have no movie. Those who have likened this to a bastard hybrid of Gravity and Alien are not too far off. But Life, the movie, isn't in any way near to the artistry and creativity of those two landmark films. It does hew to the whole haunted house in space format that was used to such great effect in Alien and its first sequel, Aliens. It also has a bit of the DNA, of John Carpenter's The Thing. Of course, the atmosphere, structure, and the vibe are so familiar now, as in not so fresh and innovative, despite great and believable zero-G effects, and they are great. And top of the current line CGI visuals, plus there's a seeming attempt to get some of the science right. It's really just a shiny-looking, well-executed B-movie with notable and skilled actors kind of slumming in the genre. I did have fun watching it, but Sci-Fi Channel's The Expanse, for instance, is so much better, so much more sophisticated and engaging, that Life seems closer in tone and depth to one of those less respected TV items from Sci-Fi. The movie was directed with admirable technical skill by the Swedish filmmaker Daniel Espinosa, who does keep the tension rolling. And for the record, I really loved his Swedish crime caper, Easy Money, which starred Joel Kinnaman, who you may know from The Killing and Suicide Squad and RoboCop. And he also worked with Ryan Reynolds on a previously released thriller, Safe House. And to be fair, I enjoyed Life. I mean, it's fun, and it's exciting enough that I'll probably go see the inevitable sequel. Something like, I don't know, Alien Sharktopus 2, Tentacles Ahoy. I mean, I hope I didn't give too much away. It is, in fact, a bargain matinee and a good one. That's Life. Saban's Power Rangers, which is how this thing is built, although we'll call it Power Rangers just for the sake of discussion, is another story. One might want to say how the mighty have fallen when you consider that Oscar and Emmy-level actor Bryan Cranston and the versatile multi-tool actress and filmmaker Elizabeth Banks are the big names in Power Rangers. I mean, those are pretty respected actors. And this is the first major American motion picture to spotlight any iteration of the Japan-spawned teen superhero series and cheese-a-thon, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I mean, Cranston plays an alien floating head, the Rangers' mentor Zordon, and Banks is actually the big screen version of the cackling, and I seriously mean cackling. This character cackles constantly. She's the alien villainous sorceress Rita Repulsa. That's right, Zordon and Rita Repulsa. No one thought these names came from a kid's sci-fi show. They sound an awful lot like something out of a patently ridiculous Saturday Night Live sketch from 20 years ago. No. They don't know the Coneheads, but you think they might live next door. Anyway, they just went with it. And believe it or not, the whole thing is kind of dull, kind of meh. So the comparatively big-budget American movie version of the classic Japanese superhero show featuring Bryan Cranston and Elizabeth Banks as the respective leaders of the intergalactic forces of good and evil is a stiff. The focus is mostly on the 5 relatively unknown actors who play the quintet of misfit teens in dead-end small-town Angel Grove, transfigured by a bunch of colored rocks that come from outer space, of course, and turned into color-coordinated superheroes, the titular Power Rangers. You get your Red Ranger, your Blue Ranger, your Pink Ranger, etc. But in after-school TV fashion, they have to learn how to trust themselves and trust each other before they can morph into the helmeted, jumpsuited, super-strong, martial arts savvy crew that'll be able to go against power-hungry, scenery-chewing Rita. And it turns out that Rita and Zordon have a history of bad blood, and she wants to destroy him, and she's going to start with Angel Grove for some reason, and then, one presumes, the world, using a giant golem and demonic Rocky henchmen who come out to fight the Rangers. And to shore up the Rangers, by the way, 3 boys, 2 girls, and in modern multi-culti fashion, a variety of ethnicities. Each one gets to ride around in a giant robo-dinosaur. And these dinosaur robots come together and morph into a giant monster-sized robot. And if you know the show, you know this is part and parcel of it. Most of the first 2/3 of this thing, quite a slog. It was written by a committee of 5. But it's directed by a guy, Dean Israelite, who did a movie I thought was pretty cool, a low-budget teen time travel flick called Project Almanac. But that was way better than this. So in brief, the big screen expansion of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is short on power and morphin and not mighty at all, except I was mighty bored. Okay, let's get to something a little more interesting. Wilson. It's one of those movies where I go in rooting for it to be not just good, but great. It's a character study of a modern, isolated, alienated, middle-aged crank brought to vivid and unlikable life by Woody Harrelson. It's based on the graphic novel by Daniel Close, who was the writer-artist behind Ghost World, another graphic novel that was adapted into a quirky, unique feature film by director Terry Zwigoff, who is not on board here. This is directed by Craig Johnson. Anyway, Ghost World is a personal favorite of mine, but Wilson falls short of that standard. Close wrote the script for Wilson and Ghost World, so one would assume it has creator approval here, but it's a major step down from Ghost World. Wilson, the character, is so honest at all times that he can't help sabotaging that handful of good things that comes his way, such as the dog walker played by Judy Greer, who actually likes him, warts and all. The movie seems to be picking up momentum when Wilson reconnects with the self-destructive ex-wife, played by an exceptional Laura Dern in her Citizen Ruth skank mode, and the wife reveals, or the former wife, reveals she gave birth to their daughter and put the child up for adoption. And so soon the bickering couple is in a cushy suburban neighborhood, stalking the daughter that Wilson never knew he had while they try to avoid her adoptive parents. And, of course, the girl shares some of her birth parents' idiosyncrasies and flaws, but everything goes off the rails in the final act of the movie, and it almost gets as unpleasant as Wilson himself, a loser who's hard to care about, which is weird because Woody Harrelson is a guy who is naturally funny and likable and a good actor. Because he's a good actor, he plays Wilson as written, which just wears you down. As comedy goes, the comedy goes and doesn't come back. I was kind of disappointed in Wilson. I mean, maybe again worth watching on the video. Let's wrap things up with Prevenge, which is also about a screwed up, hard-to-like person, but to the credit of the British film's star, writer, and director Alice Lowe, who was in Hot Fuzz, among other films, you don't mind spending an hour and a half with her. This is a darkly funny and twisted movie about what is essentially a pregnant serial killer. Lowe co-starred in Ben Wheatley's equally off-kilter horror comedy Sightseers, which you should seek out. It's a movie where she plays a drab woman on a, shall we say, unconventional vacation, driving through the UK countryside. In Prevenge, she's Ruth, a rather conventional, rather pregnant plain Jane, who is being apparently directed by the squeaky voice of the murderous fetus inside her to take out a selection of people deemed worthy of execution, a couple of whom you may recognize from various TV shows and movies, including 2 Game of Thrones vets, one of which is Gemma Whalen, who plays Yara Greyjoy in Game of Thrones. Pretty good actress, pretty cool role here, too. The how and the why of Ruth's madness are at the heart of Revenge, and in ways you could look at the movie as an expression of the pressures and seeming abnormality of being pregnant, a normal part of the life cycle, but a burden and a trial for a woman nonetheless. As it happens, Lowe was incredibly pregnant when she wrote, directed, and starred in this film. As that's quite an achievement. I thought Revenge was very, very cool and very much worth seeking out. A good film, a funny film, a screwed up film, and an impressive debut as a director and screenwriter by Alice Lowe. Anyway, that's it. I couldn't see Chips because it was against life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can't go to two things at the same time, can you?
No. That's how they scheduled it, and I think I made the right choice. Life was fun at very least.
Yeah. The couple things on TV. I watched all of Iron Fist, and it's harmed by the lead. Actually, he's not very good. And this guy Finn, I can't remember his first name now.
Finn Jones.
Finn Jones. He's really, because he's the Iron Fist, he should be a better actor, and he isn't. But it's not a bad storyline. It's just dragged down by his performance. So whatever. And then over on Amazon, they have a thing called Pilot Season. It's when they put up all these shows that they're considering to go to series with, and so they have you vote on them. And two that I watched and enjoyed. One was called Oasis, and it's about a preacher who goes to another planet that they're starting to colonize to make it a place for people to get away from Earth, which is getting polluted and, getting shop-worn. And he goes to this planet and finds out that they aren't even close to getting it going, and life there is just horrid. It's not a bad series. And then Budding Prospects is the one I really liked because it's from Terry Zwigoff.
Wow.
And it's about a bunch of guys who just have no prospects in San Francisco. And at least in the first episode, they don't get to their final destination. But nevertheless, the trip is fun and interesting. And their final destination is one of the guys has been offered a job up in Mendocino to oversee this marijuana plantation. And this takes place, I think, back in the 80s. So, of course, it's all very illegal. And it's
that's the title, Budding Prospects.
Budding Prospects, yeah. It's a very good. If you can lay your hands on it, you got Amazon, and I think for people who don't have Amazon Prime, it's still free to watch. So it's really quite good. Quite good.
They've done some cool things. One of their Mozart in the Jungle was part of their pilot series, as was The Last Tycoon, which is shooting a full run of episodes right now. So there you go.
Also the Zelda Fitzgerald thing I thought was very, very good. They're doing some interesting stuff. So
cool.
That's about it for me on my end. I guess that would wrap it up.
Let's roll. You can catch me on Twitter at Culture Blaster, and also on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, where you can listen to Alex and myself. These segments are archived, and we'll be back hopefully next week with some more new movies.
And there's more GABNet coming right up.